Imagine being dropped in the middle of a dense, featureless landscape. No sun, no stars, no landmarks. That total absence of direction is deeply unsettling because human beings are wired to find a true north. We need a physical orientation point to make sense of our surroundings, and we will actively seek out structures that help us snap into alignment. When an entire group of people agrees on one fixed geographical coordinate, it stops being a mere navigational tool. Everyone's internal compass aligns, creating a mechanism for mass unity. For the early believers, that fixed point was Jerusalem. It was the focal point for their prayers and their daily orientation. Facing this ancient city offered psychological comfort. It was the expected historical norm, a shared physical rhythm that linked them directly to previous generations of prophets. That shared orientation acts as the bedrock for a unified community identity. You know exactly where you stand, and you know everyone around you is standing right there with you. Then the command came to abandon that anchor. The early believers were told to execute a sudden 180-degree pivot in their direction of prayer. The new destination was Mecca, located hundreds of miles away to the south. Changing this focal point tested exactly who these believers were following. It forced a choice between preserving a comfortable tradition and obeying the leader giving the new command. This sudden pivot caused social friction. It confused observers and tested the community's internal cohesion, abruptly upending their established daily routines. Why would a divine mandate deliberately disrupt a nascent community's strongest symbol of unity? To physically turn your body toward a new target, you have to turn your back on the old one. You cannot face both ways at once. Turning actively severs the physical connection to the past norm. This functions as a loyalty filter. If a person's faith is tied primarily to the cultural comfort of a specific location, the physical friction of turning away will stop them in their tracks. However, if their allegiance is locked onto the commander rather than the location being commanded, they will execute the pivot without hesitation. The physical mechanics of the Qibla shift acted as a deliberate stress test designed to separate ingrained cultural habit from authentic, active allegiance. In the text itself, this mandate sits precisely at the center of Surah al-Baqarah, utilizing a literary structure known as ring composition. Placing the command at the exact midpoint of the chapter mirrors its function in reality. It is the literal turning point of the early community's identity. Passing this specific test successfully stripped away decades of cultural habituation in a single, unified motion. The result is visible in the uniform concentric circles of thousands of individuals, all orienting themselves toward a single, shared coordinate. Yielding control over one's physical direction proved to be the mandatory prerequisite for achieving spiritual alignment. Once the physical test of the Qibla was passed, the text introduces a spiritual reward. This passage culminates in the command, "Remember me, and I will remember you." By making the body physically rotate, the mandate forces the mind to follow. Each time a person adjusts their stance to face the new Qibla, they are practicing the discipline of conscious redirection, a training ground for the internal focus required for remembrance. The shift reveals an internal architecture. The final destination of this pivot is a persistent state of remembrance. Divine remembrance operates as a two-way street. It is a reciprocal action triggered by human remembrance. When a believer intentionally turns away from the distractions of the world to face the divine actively faces them back. The pivot away from the comfort of Jerusalem toward Mecca established the groundwork for reciprocal connection. The ultimate Qibla is an internal orientation where the human soul remains permanently focused toward the divine, regardless of where the body stands.